I want Hilary Swank in the next Terminator movie so bad.
There is nothing in this world that you give me to do to hug a robot.
It's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice.
Music's the core of this movie.
I was born again to watch this movie.
You'll find redeeming things and you'll be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
There was no bone saw.
Just John hamming it up over here.
2.5 out of 3 of us recommend it.
Everybody loves talking about movies. Let's talk about movies.
Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in to the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast today. We're so excited to have you here for our episode about The Dark Knight, the winner that you guys chose for the Nolan bracket. I'm here with Vince Bradley. How's it going?
Good. You guys just couldn't get enough of those comic book movies, could you?
They had to have more. And Casey, how's it going?
Hey-o.
All right. Well,
Also, I am not complaining. I love this movie so much.
it's true. I was very excited to rewatch it. Although once we got down, okay, I'll be real. Like, I would have been fine watching any of the Christopher Nolan movies. He is easily one of my favorite directors of all time. So I was super pumped.
That was my thing. Is I kind of wanted to watch something. I've seen The Dark Knight so many times. I haven't seen Interstellar since theaters. I haven't seen Inception since like the DVD release. So I was kind of like hoping one of those two would win just so I had an excuse to go back and watch them again. What are you going to do?
But we knew. I mean, Vince predicted it on one of the early episodes. He knew it was going to happen. He's like, will it be The Dark Knight? Or maybe something else? Or The Dark Knight? We'll find out, I guess.
And here we are.
So here we are talking about The Dark Knight. We're super excited to. Let's go over really quick some movie news, some what we've been watching. So big in movie news right now. They just released the first trailer for The King's Man. Is that right? It's the first trailer, right?
Yep.
Which is the prequel to The King's Man. Did you guys see it?
I did, and I was real surprised it was dropped already because I swear I just heard about this movie last week.
I haven't even heard that it's dropped, so news to me, guys.
Where have you been? What have you been doing all day?
I've been watching Rick and Morty for like a week and a half straight, and I've rewatched some of it too. So that's where I've been, guys, in that mindset.
Well, Casey's been in the Rick and Morty
in a
mindset.
multiverse. Well, it's good. The King's Man trailer, it looks different. It looks more serious in tone.
Yeah.
I'll definitely go see it. I loved the first Kingsman. Second one's not as good, but I still really enjoyed it. And I was kind of hoping we'd get more Eggsy and more... I wanted to see more Channing Tatum because I feel like we didn't really get a lot in the second one.
I know. I was expecting more of him definitely in the second one, especially with how they advertised it. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be Channing Tatum coming out guns a-blazing and everything. That's what it looked like, right?
Yeah.
So I was pretty surprised.
Oh, we should do a Kingsman episode.
We definitely should.
Mark that on the board.
Okay.
Stay tuned for that in upcoming weeks.
Guys, I actually don't have a board to write anything down.
Mark it on the fake board, Casey, that we'll pretend we have. We also have John Krasinski dropped a picture that they're officially filming A Quiet Place 2.
I got so excited about this that I went, woo, at work today. So I'm pumped. Even though it's a quiet movie, I got really excited about it.
Casey got really loud. I guess he was probably one of the annoying ones in the theater who was loud, who made me almost do... I don't
Almost
know.
ruined that movie.
Exactly.
Like the two girls sitting next to me and the lady in front of me that had her phone out half the movie.
Guys, I'm a mouth breather. What can I say?
Mouth
We bring this
breather.
up every episode. Please, please, please don't talk or use your phones in the movie theater. It ruins it for everyone. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
Just use proper movie etiquette. Everyone, especially us, will love you for it. I mean, I won't thank you because I just expect it hopefully to become the norm and for it to just become, not even a thing anymore. If someone pulls out their movie at the movie theater, hopefully everyone will hate them. But,
Their phone at the movie theater.
Anyways, so Casey's been watching Rick and Morty. I have been watching just a lot of random shows, trying to find something to get into. The Fosters, Scrubs. I've been rewatching Psych to see if I want to get into that. It's a lot of different things. I haven't really decided on anything yet. I know I watched a movie. We mentioned it before the podcast. I can't remember it anymore. But I've been watching a lot of things. Yeah. What about Vince? What are you watching?
I started on Saturday The Bodyguard on Netflix. Pretty sure it's a BBC show. It's a British show. It's starring the guy who plays Robb Stark in Game of Thrones. I got about 2.5 episodes in. I might have finished the second episode and it didn't really it didn't really.
You didn't feel it?
It had some really, really cool moments in it. This really cool shootout that I really liked, but it's very, I don't know. It just never sucked me in. So I don't know if I'll go back to it or not. So that was it. That's all I've really been watching, other than the occasional sitcom here though. There.
Awesome. Interesting. So yeah, that's what we've been watching. That's big movie news lately. So let's jump into The Dark Knight. Thank you so much for picking it. We all enjoyed watching it this week.
I just want to say thanks everybody who participated in this tournament on Instagram and Twitter. I had a blast with it. I don't know. I've been having a lot of fun talking to you guys on Instagram. Like, I haven't ever really contributed that way to social media before, like actually had conversations. So, everybody who's on there that's been jumping in the comments and let me know your thoughts about like the different movies, why you liked them, why you didn't like them. I posted a thing about the batsuits, and we'll talk about that later. Like, I loved hearing your thoughts on them, and I'm going to give you a shout out here later in the episode. So just thank you guys. That was a lot of fun this week.
Yeah, it's been super awesome. I love seeing everyone vote, and as we went along, more and more people voted, and people were talking to me about it at work. They're like, Josh, like, you got to do something, rig the vote so this movie can win or the other one can win. And so it was super exciting to see how it all went down.
And I loved watching and kind of like giggling at y'all's comments and arguments and debates. I don't run any of the social, like, I've kind of stepped back from that because I've been like editing and stuff and trying to find ways to change things around. And
like that killer new intro we have.
doo-doo-doo.
That's true.
That was a good collaborative effort. I just want to shout out you guys for obviously those top-notch one-liners that we were able to find and put in there. It made it a lot of fun, and then it was cool just to kind of collaborate on that. And yeah, it's fun to kind of learn that kind of stuff so that we can improve the experience that we all have as we, one, make, and then two, listen to the podcast. So thank you guys for your support, and that was the motivation enough for us to add on and change it up a little bit. There will be another surprise come a few episodes further, so we'll just have to see.
There was no bones. It's my favorite one for sure.
Never enough bones.
All right, yeah. Sounds super good. So let's get into the movie a little bit.
Casey,
Do you want to do a quick synopsis for us?
So put you on the spot.
So as far as like synopsises go, right? This is the second son of Christopher Nolan in the Batman trilogy, as you might say, the Nolan trilogy. Here we find Batman just kind of doing his thing throughout the city, right? Still continuing to fight crime and try to find resolve as, the Dark Knight. What you do find a little bit of in here is that people are trying to join in, and the changes kind of happening throughout Gotham, which I love. Citizens in action is a good thing, but sometimes it can be a little bit whack. Hockey pants, man. But really, in the end, we find there's a new, I don't know, everyone should know this by now, but there's a new kind of villain on the scene where he doesn't care. He really is like, he describes himself as a wild dog, chasing a car, not knowing what he's going to do with it. And then in the end, we find out of what humanity or people are really capable of doing, and what, pressure and the circumstances of the moment can do to change and influence people. Is that a good enough synopsis of it?
Yeah. I just want to mention that this takes place, I think they said 9 months after Batman Begins, I think. So Batman's kind of pretty well established his rule of the city, and the mobsters are all running scared. They have all their meetings in the daylight because they're scared to meet up for they're scared that Batman is going to show up to stop them. Yeah, I think you covered everything else though. Like that's pretty much where we're at in the series.
Also, I think that another thing that we could bring up too is that the law is finally on board with Batman too, like wanting to get people put away. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that way about the original Batman Begins film, because the mobsters kind of ran things, and now we're seeing more of a step up of public servants in this as well. So not only citizens in action, but also public servants in action.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 bits.
So do you guys just want to jump straight into the spoiler review since it's a 10-year-old movie?
Yeah.
I'm game.
I mean, we all love this movie, right? Do you want to say anything else?
I want to talk about something, because obviously we'll talk
go
about how much we love the movie. I did want to maybe have a quick discussion, not too long, about how we feel, happen, how we feel this movie is compared to more modern superhero movies, and if it deserved more credit in the awards sector versus, say, a movie like Black Panther. Because I was pretty surprised because I thought it had less. The Dark Knight, it did receive 8 Academy Award nominations. It only won 2 for the late Heath Ledger, of course, as Best Supporting Actor and also Best Sound Editing. But then all the other ones were like Best Makeup, Best Sound Mixing, different things like that it didn't win any of them. So do you think for the films that were coming out then that The Dark Knight at least deserved a Best Picture nomination if it came out today?
100% yes. The most impressive thing about this movie is how practical everything is. I mean, the acting's amazing, the story's amazing, the overall everything they did. I had so much fun watching the making of this movie because the minimal they just did so little with CGI. They used CGI to touch up scenes rather than create full scenes. They used actual cars, like crashing them. They used actual explosions. They used everything they could and then used CGI to like cut the cameras out or the mattresses that someone was jumping on. And I think that we don't really get that nowadays. I mean, they kind of tried to do it with the new Star Wars movie, but they don't, to the extent that I feel like The Dark Knight went to make a movie that feels so realistic. Was just so cool. I think it deserves every award that it was nominated for.
I tend to agree a lot with that, and I think this will be a circle of agreement in this because it wasn't over the top, right? Like there was nothing that I was like, oh, that could never happen, because you look at it and you start out from the beginning of the film. It's a very well thought out crime, heist. It's very well thought out. Then you go into Batman, his tools, and kind of all the weaponry. Like if you have the right smarts and the money to back those smarts, anything's possible in this movie. And I like, for one, like there's a scene, and I don't know if it's gonna spoil it or anything like that here. Like it's a 10-year-old movie, right? But there's a scene where they use something called skyhook, right, which seems incredibly practical if you think about it. Someone at one time had to have tested that.
So getting right into it, the skyhook is actually, he mentions that it was tested by the CIA.
Yeah.
That was real life, something that the CIA tested. It actually worked for them, but I don't think they ever put it into use.
I feel like you get major whiplash from that. That's all I think about.
But they have footage. You can get on the internet and you can watch some of the footage of it.
That's like the first thing
I'm pretty sure. You might want to double check me on that.
That's the first thing I'm going to do after we finish this episode is look up Skyhook, CIA. Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you guys. I feel like, I'm happy that if a superhero movie is well made and it has a good story with character arcs and everything like that, that it can break into the best picture, category of the Oscars. I think that other superhero, I'm not saying a lot because they've evolved so much, but I think definitely, if anything, The Dark Knight, I went back and I looked at the Oscar noms for Best Picture that year, and they were all good movies. I just think that The Dark Knight was in that category and was above and beyond. Not all the movies, because, there were good movies. Slumdog Millionaire came out that year and a lot of good things. I'm not saying it should have won. I'm just saying that I think it was a different time, and so they were feeling probably pretty generous giving it 8 Oscar nominations, and they were like, this doesn't fit in the category of Best Picture, but the writing is so good. I think about the Joker and his motives and how we can look on it in modern society and apply it to ourselves, and it's so intricate. I love it, and I think it definitely deserved that.
Yeah.
So, that being said, we'll put out the official spoiler alert ahead for this 11-year-old movie that if you haven't seen it, where have you been, etc., but in the nicest way possible, go watch it, please. So, we'll jump straight into spoilers, guys. Can we start with just the beginning of the movie, the whole opening bank robbery sequence? What were your guys' thoughts or new impressions maybe about that?
Man, I loved it so much. I was getting really excited about it because, right, the first thing you see is people, the Joker holding a mask, essentially this guy holding a mask, gets in a vehicle, and then you see guys on the roof. And then you kind of go in and how the whole bank robbery plays out, right? And it's so clever in the way that it's been done. The way that okay, after someone takes out this, someone's got to die. It cuts down the shares, cuts down the shares, cuts down the shares. And then you have people who are scared in the bank. You have the Joker who doesn't actually say a word throughout the whole thing until essentially like the final moments of that scene where he says, what doesn't kill you makes you stranger, right? That's his line essentially. And you have the guy who's the loan officer or whatever he is in there, and he pulls out a shotgun out of his office. But what a scene.
I didn't put together, I was listening to something, and they brought up the fact that this bank teller just kind of, when he just jumped up and started shooting at the guys who were stealing, and they mentioned that he is probably working hand in hand with the mob. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, of course he does. Like, he's the leader of this. He owns this bank. It's the mob, all the mob's money there. Of course he's a part of the friggin' mob, It's just something that I just never put together for some reason. I just thought he was this guy who was just like overly into his bank. I'm going to make sure everything is safe. But no, he's scared of the mob as much as everyone else is. He knows the punishment that's going to come down to him when all the money's gone.
Like, I never thought of that either, and I have no idea why not, because it makes complete sense. And he's not just like one of those citizens trying to do good. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Because he knows, because he's like, you think you're smart, huh? You know who you're stealing from?
Yeah.
So he knows what's going on 100%. He's not just...
He has that line. I've watched this movie so many times. He has that line where he's like, you know who you're stealing of. He definitely knows. How did I miss that every time? But I loved this intro because it sets up the Joker so perfectly, like you were saying, without the Joker saying a single word or even seeing him. And it reminds me of like kind of the old James Bond movies, how they have those big action pieces before they cut to the James Bond song, and it gets you like into the movie, and it gets you really set up for what's about to come. And that's what they did with this. They have this giant heist going on. And throughout the heist, they have these guys wearing these clown masks running around talking about the guy who hired them. Have you heard this guy that he calls himself the Joker? Oh, yeah, I hear he paints his face. It's like war paint or something.
Yeah.
So you learn everything you need to about the villain of the movie throughout the scene, and it builds up and it builds up to that point where Joker pulls off the mask, and like you said, he has that delivery. What I believe that...
I believe that what doesn't kill you only makes you stranger.
Yeah, and he pulls off that mask, and you see him, and you just like, can you imagine if you didn't see any trailers or anything for this movie, and you see him pull off that mask, like the reaction you would get?
Gasp.
Yeah, he's just so creepy looking.
Well, because he's so creepy looking, and like you said, I think they perfectly set up. You learn who the Joker is. You learn what he's doing, like how crazy he is, like everything that's going on with him at this time. And then he pulls it off, and it's everything you want because the music just drops, and you see who it is. And they do a very, very good job. The whole opening sequence, I'll say a little more in just a second, is like a cinematic masterpiece. It's really, really well made. And it's really well made because even though his hair isn't like other Joker's hair, like some neon green, it's still green. And it's green at this moment. They just do a really good job with the lighting and the way that they do the shots to have the back of his hair always behind the light. So it just looks like dark hair, except for I found one that was like 3 shots before he takes off his mask, that as he's turning, you can see the light hit it really quick. And so you can see just like a quick hint of green, but nothing that you'd notice unless you were looking for the Joker specifically, like I was after having already seen the movie. So it's already amazingly done. The other thing I wanted to mention, because the whole opening is amazing and we can't spend too much time on it otherwise.
Yeah, we'll be here all day.
Exactly. It's just how well the shots, the timing of the shots and the music fit with the story moving itself along, because we'll talk about this the entire podcast, how they have that suspenseful note that's held out on a string instrument or something like that builds tension, just that boom that goes in it. So that happens a few times during the first sequence that you hear that, and then when something happens, the music, it interrupts and it has like a little drop in sound. So the very first shot after you see, the Batman thing coming through the flames is you see a building, and it's just panning up to the building, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous shot until snap, the window goes and you see the people shooting it out. You don't know exactly what they're doing, but then you see them shoot that grappling hook, and then it cuts to who is the Joker. We later learn, right, holding the mask, and it just starts zooming up on the mask super slowly, and the note holds and it gets louder, and the tension grows until the car pulls up and it does the same thing and it drops. So both the timing of the shots with the music to build that tension through the entire first sequence of the movie is incredible. So I guess I'll just say that about the opening. It's all amazing, but those are the things that really stuck out to me. And
And then they continued, so they established the villain throughout that sequence, and then they continued right into, I don't think there's anything between it, but they continued into the scene that introduces Batman for the first time with a drug bust going on at night. And it introduces the Chechen, which is one of the bad guys, and his dogs and his little gang. And he pulls up into the parking garage and steps out of the car, throws out this druggy guy who's just like tripping out of his mind. And he's like all angry and saying that, like, look what your drug did to me. And out steps Cillian Murphy, the Scarecrow's back. And they did such it's really cool that they never, like the Batman Begins has such a different feel than this one does. The city, like you said, they have these really pretty shots of Gotham in this one, but Gotham feels so much more real and so much less comic booky than it did in Batman Begins. But they use little things to tie them together still. Cillian Murphy coming back as the Scarecrow was one of them. And also, if you pay attention in those big, beautiful shots of Gotham, every once in a while you can still see between the buildings the train tracks from Batman Begins, where that kind of would have taken place.
Everything goes to Wayne Tower.
Yeah.
Right?
well, because those are just the regular trains, right, that they have there in Chicago.
Yeah, so Gotham is shot
maybe.
in Chicago.
Or does it look different?
I feel like it's that double-decker train system that they introduced from the first one. It looks a little out of place to me, but I've never been to Chicago, so I don't know.
They have the trains that go above the city. Like, it's pretty
Like
cool.
through the buildings and
Through the
everything?
buildings.
Oh, maybe
way
it's
cool.
just that then.
I think they have a subway too, but most of their trains are above.
Well, because
when I went there, I experienced that, and it was like really cool to kind of float. I'd never floated because like I've been to New York, I've been to like Washington D.C. All the subways are down below, and with Chicago, when you go and you get in the airport, like you go below some spots, but then once you get into the city, you're up.
Comes up
above.
between. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's really cool. I felt like I was getting a real like unique view of the city doing that. Sorry.
Well, because it does that, and I know that Casey was pretty fortunate. He got to go on like a boat tour or something in Chicago where they point out the different buildings that they used in it. I was in Chicago for like 5 hours. Like that was my extent of being in Chicago because I was in Illinois visiting family. I was nice and I drove my sister-in-law and her boyfriend up to see a concert. Me and my wife just checked out the city while they were at the concert a little bit, and then we picked them up and drove back to our family's house. So, but even being there for that short amount of time, like I was geeking out about the Dark Knight because one of the places we were going to try and get into the main parts of the city and everything like that was the roads that went underground, just like the movie. They call it like Fifth Avenue or whatever when they go down, and it's below where they have that whole scene with the Joker trying to get Harvey because he's in police custody and everything like that. And I was geeking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is totally that. Like, this is amazing.
Cool. That's so cool.
It is a cool city to go see after you've thought about it. And we got on the duck tour. It's not a duck tour, but it's like a boat tour down the river. And the lady is like pointing out, so that's Batman's penthouse. This is what you'll notice was shot as the bank. It used to be this, and it's really cool.
Your own private tour of Gotham.
I loved it on a boat. You know, free drinks for everyone. No, they were expensive, but it was a good time.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds way awesome. I'll definitely have to do that.
I do want to kind of talk about, I thought it was really cool where they did bring the Scarecrow back, you know. That scene kind of shows, I don't know, you can call it the underbelly of Gotham, the people who are trying to run the show still. They're running into hiccups in their plans, right? Because the guy pulls him out, he's like, what's this? And he's like, I told you my product would take you places. I didn't say it was places you'd want to go. Really,
they're desperate.
They're
the mob
running
is
in,
desperate. They can't even find drugs to sell anymore, so they're buying from a psychopath that gives them hallucinogens that give them nightmares.
Yes.
Exactly. And just like Vince mentioned, it sets up Batman and the state of Gotham, not state as in state, just the way that Gotham is perfectly for this movie. Just like the beginning sequence set you up for who the Joker is, this sets up who Batman is and what's going on with both the citizens who are trying to follow him and be good people and sort of help him out, to how scared the mob is and what's going on. And I mean, it just perfectly within the first 10 minutes of this 2.5 hour movie gives you the entire premise, the entire feel for everything that needs to happen. Because unlike the other ones where they travel outside Gotham a lot, this is all inside Gotham. I don't think there's a single part where they leave, is there?
They go to Hong Kong for a minute.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's pretty cool. My bad. But
sorry, I was like, I remember that.
They definitely do, because I forgot that. But so it sets you up perfectly for the entire situation. So it's really good. Moving.
Do you want to go with the?
Well,
Check it out.
kind of going forward and looking at it, right? So at the end of this scene, he just rips off, the mask of the Scarecrow and leaves him there chained up, and then he walks out, and the citizen says, "What gives you the right to do what you're doing?" And Batman's like, "I don't need help," setting himself up as kind of a lone ranger. He's the Dark Knight, and then we kind of go into where we're, being introduced to Rachel again, who's a new character in this one, right? New actress,
Played by Maggie Gyllenhaal instead of Holmes, Kate Holmes.
Instead of Katie Holmes, yeah. Just really quick, a shout out though to one of my favorite lines of the movie. What gives you the right? I'm not wearing hockey pants.
I'm not wearing hockey pants. That kind of stuff. Isn't that great though, that they're like, even though this is a very serious movie, there are these one-liners that still give you a little chuckle throughout it, because this is like, I feel like this is a dark movie. Like overall, the whole tone of it is dark. But yeah, getting into it, you're reintroduced to, Rachel, and then you're also introduced to Gotham's White Knight, Harvey Dent. And that kind of sets us up for what's going on in the system as far as how is the law stepping up to help Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Like you mentioned before, how the law, even though technically Batman is a vigilante, how they're dealing with all of it, with both Batman helping them so that they can really, in their minds, hopefully put an end to the large mobs that have ruled the city for such a long time, it being such a large city and having all these problems, trying to put a stop to it. With the introduction of both Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent and Katie Holmes, or not Katie Holmes, sorry, Katie Holmes the old one, Maggie, right, Gyllenhaal? Maggie Gyllenhaal as the new Rachel. Small nitpick for me, not as far as movie going. I mean, you guys can say if you felt the same way or not. I like the old Rachel better. That's one of the only nitpicks I have about the movie. I mean, they couldn't really control it, so
yeah,
it's not necessarily about the movie. I just prefer Katie Holmes.
Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal did great. I liked her. I don't know. I feel like Maggie Gyllenhaal had better acting chops than Katie Holmes did.
Katie Holmes, for me, she played. I agree that Maggie Gyllenhaal had better acting chops. Once Katie Holmes wasn't coming back, they have Maggie Gyllenhaal. That was one of the best moves that they could have made, knowing the situation they had. But Katie Holmes played Rachel as so sweet and innocent and just that childhood friend that Bruce has already had. And then Maggie Gyllenhaal, right from the start, as they're leaving, the court, she's talking to Harvey Dent, and she's like, oh, they're not shooting at you, they're not doing your job. And in that instant, you already get a feel that Rachel's different from the first one. At least for me, that's how I've always felt. She says that line, and I know that this isn't the same Rachel from the first one, or that she's changed somehow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and bringing up that scene where the reason that she says that if they're not shooting at you, right? Two-Face, Harvey Dent, he actually is in the courtroom, and he's got Maroney on the bench, and they're trying to put him away, and they got one of his low-level thugs who pulls a gun out at him in the middle of court and tries to shoot him. It kind of shows there what Harvey's kind of doing for the city here. He's the new district attorney. He's working to stop the mob. He's willing to do whatever it takes, and he kind of you brought up he was the White Knight, Gotham's White Knight, whereas Batman's Gotham's Dark Knight. They kind of reflect each other a lot through the movie. Batman is the one working in the shadows, breaking the laws that have to be broken, doing all these things that he has to do, whereas Harvey, the White Knight, is working in the daytime. He's following the laws. Neither of them are scared of the mob. Both of them are willing to put themselves in front of the guns to be shot at. And Maggie Gyllenhaal's character, Rachel, she finds herself kind of torn between these two men who have a lot of similarities. They're willing to fight for the city. They're willing to do everything it takes. And throughout the movie, she's trying to decide, which one am I going to go for? Am I going to wait for Bruce Wayne to decide he doesn't want to be Batman anymore? Or am I going to go with Harvey Dent, who is working, who isn't obsessed with being this alter ego?
And even, Bruce says to her partway through the movie, he says that he's, trying not to do that. And so even though he's saying that Harvey Dent's going to take over as the person who can put away the bad guys without wearing a mask, he's saying that so he can stop being Batman. She'll be with him. That's almost like a pro for her, for Harvey Dent, right? Is that he's doing all this stuff without needing to wear a mask and beat up all these people. But they work really well together if you think about it, even though he does it one way, she does another way. I mean, later on when Bruce Wayne or Batman, he goes and gets the guy in China and he brings it back. And because of that, they're able to do the entire Rico case where they put all those people away. They work really well together. But like you said, the whole movie is about the contrast and doing it the one way, which is technically illegal, but doing it or the other way.
I would love to jump into probably my favorite scene in the movie. I guess Joker's already been introed in the beginning, but the first time that we really see who the Joker is and what he's capable of through his actions, and that's when the mob is having their daylight therapy session, and Joker walks in with the creepiest Joker laugh out of all the Joker laughs. Like, Mark Hamill does a great job, but that laugh that he does as he's kind of walking into the room, it's so creepy. And you talked, Casey, about how this movie it's a heavier movie, it's a serious movie. The comic relief, the places where I found myself laughing the most was at the Joker, which is kind of ironic because he is this clown man, but he's like terrifying. But his facial expressions, the way he laughs, the way he talks to people, or like when the Gamble, one of the mobsters, calls him crazy, he just kind of looks at him. He's like, I am not, or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I found myself like laughing at those, at the normal way he talks, the normal way he laughs, the little towards the end of the movie in the chase scene under the ground that you brought up, when Batman comes in and shoves that, crashes into the dump truck. Joker kind of turns and he's just kind of huh, he makes a noise kind of like that I just it makes me laugh. He's just calculating and thinking of all these things, and he's just not quite taking things seriously still. I mean, he is, but he's surprised at things too, and the way he reacts to it I thought was really funny.
Yeah, well, he kind of talks about this at the end of the film, and I think it's something good to reference at this point too. He talks about the contrast between Batman and the Joker. He's like, you and I, we give each other purpose, essentially. What would I do without you? I'm like a dog chasing cars. If I caught one, I just wouldn't know what to do with it, right? Yeah. And at this point, a lot of people are you see the madness, but you also see the genius of the Joker, because he walks into this meeting, right? And the very first thing, Gamble, right, he says, who invited the clown? And, then he's like, well, look at this. You want to see make a pencil this here? Boom, kills the guy, by stuffing the pencil down his eye socket and such. But then he goes into the plan, and he goes in there with such a ballsy idea. He's like, how much do you want? Why haven't you done already? And he was like, well, never do something for free if you're good at it. And then I want half. And he says that with such, just half. Doesn't care. And everyone's like, ooh,
you're crazy.
Whew, what an idea, not. Right? Yeah, it really sets up the, like you said, the tone of the Joker and what he's willing to do, because this guy is relentless. And you look at some of his features and characteristics, and I hate to say it like this, but he almost reminds me of somebody who has a mental illness that's really strong, got some help, kind of got their meds worked out, the chemicals in their body worked out, but then just went off, again, and who now has found a purpose, although it's not the greatest purpose ever. And so, yeah, the Joker sets himself up really well, and then the bombs and stuff in his jacket, he's just not afraid.
Yeah, definitely. He's not afraid to, because he knows what he's doing. He's walking into the session of literally the largest people who besides the government, control the entire city. And he's walking in alone by himself. And so he knows that he's got this sort of safe wire, these grenades in his coat, but he would go down with it, and he's totally fine with that. So I definitely agree that is also one of my favorite scenes.
It's also interesting exploring the character of the Joker a little bit more. If you notice, Gamble is the only one that Joker went after in the mob and actually like killed himself. And I think that the reason he does it is someone calls him crazy. He says he's not crazy, and then Gamble calls him a freak. And I think the Joker is a little insecure, not insecure, but he's just like, I'm not going to take anyone's crap. You push me like you push me over the line, and I'm going to step back, because in the next, like a little bit later down the movie, he ends up going to Gamble, straight up killing Gamble and a couple of his men and recruiting his people.
I'd agree that he's not insecure, but you can see at that moment that he's definitely struggled with things like that in the past, because he says like, I like me, and Gamble says a freak. And then you can see, even though he still goes on with his plan, that he's like, a guy, look.
Yeah.
And so you can see he's offset by it.
So good.
And so I agree with you that he definitely does that. So let's move forward so that we have time to get to everything in the movie. Although,
yeah, this is going to be hard, because we could like dissect like every single scene in this movie is good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to skip over things, because I want to talk about everything, but we're limited amount of time.
Let's talk about like another. I know that you talked about this as one of your favorite scenes. I think one of my favorite scenes is when we get to Wayne Tower, when Bruce Wayne is doing a fundraiser for Harvey Dent. And, it's kind of this posh get together, and everyone's, rubbing each other's backs and getting cozy so they can give Harvey Dent money, hopefully, right? And then in comes Bruce Wayne, in a helicopter in most definite Playboy fashion.
Three girls with him.
Three girls getting out of the thing. And they walks in, and he essentially mocks Harvey Dent. And then, talks about his slogan, like, and I believe in Harvey Dent. And, I've gotten to the point that I actually do, type thing. And then we start seeing, all of this that's going down with the Joker. He's made threats on very certain people's lives, right? Like the commissioner. He makes threats against the judge, and then he makes threats against Harvey Dent. And so 2 of the 3 of them, unfortunately, gone. But then we have Harvey Dent, Harvey Dent is talking to his lady, and then Bruce Wayne just comes up behind him, puts him in a sleeper hold, and drags him off. And I love that. And then, out comes the Joker, out comes the Batman, and kind of moving forward from there, we have ourselves a very big setup on decision-making throughout the film, but also the real twist of what's going to go forward, and how, the Joker may have figured out who the Batman is.
And also how iconic and incredible Heath Ledger's performance is, because we'll mention it so many times. And a lot of times we'll just say it as, oh, the Joker, he's so good with this. There's very good writing for the Joker in this movie. Amazing writing. But it would not be possible with what Heath Ledger did for it. So this scene is one of my favorite scenes, especially to look at just how incredible Heath Ledger is, because he comes in, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're tonight's entertainment. You hear that bar crash in the background, just like that little something, and he turns and looks. That was just something on set that had fallen, and he just looked at it, and he just kept going without even a moment's pause. And in that same shot, it follows him, and he starts talking, everyone looking for Harvey Dent. And you just see how crazy he is, because he's looking at everyone. You know where Harvey is? You know where Harvey is? He grabs a glass of champagne, throws all the champagne out of it, and then he takes a drink from this empty glass. I mean, he's just crazy. And then when you get to the part where he finds Harvey's little squeeze, right? When he finds Rachel, and he's talking to her, and he gives his first "Why so serious?" speech, or "You want to know how I got these scars?" speech, right? And when he does that, he's holding her really, really close to his face. And you feel so uncomfortable, because while he's delivering this chilling story that later we question if this is real, if something else is real, and we have no clue, the camera is continuously spinning around the two, making you feel uncomfortable until the moment he says, and then I carved my face, and it stops just to like push how important that part is. And what I loved about that part also with Heath Ledger was he was so creepy in this scene that Maggie Gyllenhaal, you see how uncomfortable she is, sort of squirming. Maggie Gyllenhaal wanted to cut the scene because
Oh, really?
Heath Ledger was being super crazy. He was holding this obviously fake, but knife up to her face. He was grabbing her like in her cheeks, right next to her mouth, her face. She was genuinely uncomfortable, which is obviously, you know, you don't want to have like a bad workplace experience, but that's just how into the character Heath Ledger was, and obviously it produced an amazing outcome.
Yeah.
And made all of us feel so awkward and look deeper because we already know the Joker's setup and what he wants to do with the city, but then we look deeper in his personal background and what set him up for this, and also just what he's thinking, what's going through his mind.
And this is the second story that the Joker has told, backstory. The first time he tells one to Gamble right before he kills him, a story about how he got the scars. And then this is the second time he tells the story about how he got the
I
scars.
thought that was after this.
No, so the first one is when he kills Gamble, and he talks about how his dad was a drinker and a fiend. And, you know, he takes the knife and puts it in my mouth, and why so serious? Boom. And then this one with Maggie and stuff, he talks about his wife and how she's so beautiful, and he just wants her to, you know, smile because she has some scars, and he's like, I take the razor, I put it in my mouth, and she can't even stand to look at me, you know, and that's such an intense, like, he's telling these stories, so it sets up also what this specific Joker's character went through to get to what he is, right? And it's deep and dangerous. So yeah.
Do you remember what the third one is? Where the third one takes place?
Crickets. I can't remember. Let me look that up for a moment.
That's okay. This actually, after he finishes, okay. So after the Joker comes in, he grabs Rachel, threatens her. Batman shows up, saves the day. This brings me to Vince's costume corner, where we're going to talk about the batsuits. Sorry, it's a comic book. Yeah.
Batsuits.
I can't watch a superhero movie and not talk about the costumes for a minute. We get a new batsuit in this one. In that scene with the drug bust, you see Batman jump on the side of the van and he's cutting the thing, and you notice that he can't turn his head to see what he's cutting. Mm-hmm. So, just like in real life, they put it into the movie. They wrote it into the movie. Just in real life, they wanted Batman to be able to move his head. And so they redesigned the entire suit around that one aspect.
Sure, make backing out of the driveway easier.
Yeah. And they made this easily the coolest suit in all superhero movies. Like, they cheat with CGI a little bit in the Marvel movies. This is a real suit that they made that he could wear in the sunlight and doesn't look weird. Like, how many characters, how many superheroes have you seen, TV shows, movies, everything, that wears a mask, wears the Batman cowl over his face, that doesn't look just a little bit off? This batsuit is so perfectly made for Christian Bale that even wearing the mask on his head, he looks like a freaking badass.
Winning.
All I can say is agreed. I mean, Vince put up the little poll on Instagram about who wore it better, Casey Affleck or
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, my bad, or
Christian Bale.
Christian
Yeah.
Bale. I almost said like Ben Stiller. Like, I have no idea where my mind's at right now. It's like the most comedic Batman ever. Let's throw Ben Stiller in there next. No, my apologies. So, and it was what, like 90 to 10%, 90% to 10% for Christian Bale,
people
right?
love the Bale costume.
I voted for Bale.
Yeah, it was 90% voted Bale, 10% voted Affleck. Just a shout out to some of you guys. Thanks for commenting. My buddy Tony says the grays in the Affleck suit look like a burlap bag. Props to Bale's Bruce, who orders his original mask from AliExpress in the movie. Benji Stone 10 says he likes the Affleck suit more. Bale is a better Batman though. Sophia Bills, she's a little more passionate. Thanks for that was a fun little conversation. She says that the suit, the Christian Bale suit, looks quicker. He's less beefy, looks more quick and efficient, and he looks more like an assassin than a security guard, which goes really well with this version of Batman that we have, who's more, he got trained by ninjas, so of course he's going to kind of have more of that ninja look than that brawler look. So, and Allie Yardley, shout out to Allie, she says Bale suit, no contest.
I agree.
So thanks guys for commenting that, for jumping on and discussing that with me.
Although I agree with some of these things that have been said, I love the Bale suit, right? This Arrow suit. I have a thing for Ben Affleck's suit because it reminds me of like the Batman cartoons that I grew up with a little bit more. It also reminds me of, just the classic, comic look of Batman in a way before they kind of altered him and changed him a bunch. I didn't necessarily think that Ben Affleck was a great Batman, but I like the suit a little bit because it reminds. Okay, so when they made the comics, I think these were made before I was a kid, so they're kind of a little bit older. They're made in the late 80s, early 90s, so like before I can recall most of life. Like Batman was like big, broad-shouldered, and like that's how Ben Affleck's Batman was portrayed, and he did have the grayer suit. I guess I agree with all of you though, because I agree that the Christian Bale suit is better, but I like the Ben Affleck suit just a little bit. So
I have no problem with it either. I just think the Bale suit's better.
Yeah.
What do you think,
I
Josh?
agree that the Bale suit is better and it looks like a more modern Batman. Before I saw Affleck, because I saw like Batman versus Superman and a few of the new ones. I haven't watched a lot of the new Justice League. And before I saw the word Affleck, I saw the two suits and I thought you were comparing Bale with an older Batman. Because like Casey says, it does look more on the retro side with that very light gray and then the dark Batman on it. Obviously, you can see the Batman better, but the Bale suit, like Sophia said, it looks like he's an assassin, Super crazy. Did you guys think that it was very realistic, right, at that next part when they jump out and they fall all the way onto that car? Do you think that they should have lived?
You gotta...
It's the only part that I think is
maybe
not realistic.
Yeah, you gotta rationalize it in your brain. Maybe he used the cape to slow him down a little bit more, but he really hit that car hard. The one thing that I do love about this version of Batman, of superheroes in general, is he actually gets hurt. Like there was a scene from Spider-Man where he got hurt, and in the next scene he's kind of just fine. It's a superhero trope. Kind of power sets aren't, what's the word I'm looking for, consistent.
Yeah.
I feel like in this in the Dark Knight, they're very consistent about the damage that he takes. He has, in one scene, he's stitching up bite marks from a dog. He's got bruises all over his back. He's got cuts, and I feel like he kind of, even at the end of the movie when he falls off the building, he's limping away throughout the whole thing. I feel like he is actually feeling pain. He is actually a real guy. He's not a superhero like we get in some of the future editions.
Yeah. And that's sort of what makes it so good, right? Sort of, as we talked about in the beginning, the more realistic feel. I agree. All right, perfect. So moving right along in the movie. Gosh, guys, this is going to be a forever long episode if we keep doing it like this. But it's so amazing. And how can we not do this? It's almost like we have to do this or we're not giving justice to the movie.
In the words of all skiers and snowboarders everywhere, just send it, guys.
I did want to bring up something just really quick to see if maybe you guys thought the same thing as me, or maybe I was just thinking a little bit crazy. Just before this, jumping back just the smallest little bit, when Harvey Dent talks to Alfred and he says, "You've known Rachel your whole life," and he says, "Well, not yet, sir." Do you guys think that was a purposeful allusion to the end when she
I
died?
think they're kind of foreshadowing her death there.
See, I had never noticed that until this point, because obviously he says not yet and you're just like, oh yeah, because she's not dead yet, haha. But then if you think about it, you're like, but she will be. There was a lot more foreshadowing that I saw when I watched it more closely this time.
Can we talk little bit about, let's talk about Commissioner Gordon and his hiding and coming back out near the end of the film, right? I don't know if this is jumping too far ahead. So there's one point where they're honoring the dead, right? The people who have fallen thus far in the movie, and the Joker plans out a very thought out thing, right? He's gonna disguise him and his people as the guard for this festivity or celebration of life, or whatever you want to call it, memorial service, and they do their part, and then the final firing of this thing, they turn to take out, it's the mayor, right, of the city. Commissioner Gordon gets taken down, and this is where we see Harvey Dent taken. No, Harvey Dent's not taken at this point, right? He is taking... Okay, sorry. I got ahead of myself there. But, we see Commissioner Gordon fall, and then it's another sad moment for everyone. But it's kind of interesting to see the Joker's plans as they kind of unravel. And I'm not saying unravel because it's falling apart, but as he kind of goes through and does things, because they continue to be well thought out plans. Because some criminals and some bad guys, when one thing doesn't go as planned or something kind of is successful in a moment, their plans get a little bit more sloppy, a little bit more sloppy, a little bit more sloppy. But throughout the whole entire Joker segment here, he keeps delivering.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I wasn't really sure about. Like, how did Joker plan for all of these outcomes, you know? Like, how did he know that he was going to get caught at one point? How did he know he was going to get thrown in jail? And how did he know that he needed to put a bomb inside of a guy to break him out? So I was thinking about it, and I think that's seriously what it is. I think that he thrives on chaos, but he has so many plans put in action that I think that if he didn't get arrested in that moment, that guy with the bomb still would have ended up in the prison and blown up the prison.
Yeah.
I just think that the Joker is kind of like, he's just on top of things. He's on the ball. He's moving. He doesn't really know what to do next. He just puts plans in motion, and whatever ones work are the ones that work.
So that was one of my favorite things that I thought about and learned this time watching the movie. We had Vince's costume corner. Now it's time for Josh's thought out moment time. So my thought out moment of this movie was, it's sort of hard to say, and I apologize if this comes out wrong. The Joker thrives on chaos. He talked about, in the scene where he's talking to Harvey Dent in the hospital later, he talks about how people are planners and how, or maybe it's when he's burning up the money. I don't remember, but he talks about...
It's when he's talking to Harvey Dent.
Is it?
It's after Harvey gets burned up and they're in the hospital.
He talks about how people are planners and how they're trying to do things, but the world is chaos. And that's also, he talks to Harvey Dent later, and that's how he convinces him to sort of turn bad, is because chaos is fair. And so it's ironic because the Joker thrives on chaos and making sure everything is out of order and crazy, but he plans so hard to convince people that chaos is the way to go, that chaos is what rules them, and that everyone should be mad because chaos is what rules everything, is what really should drive people, because people have all these different rules that they live by, but that they shouldn't. And so...
Yeah, what does he say? Like, everybody's fine until something goes wrong. Everything's fine until everything's going as part of the plan, Like, even he brings up war,
a soldier dies.
It's like a soldier dies, no one bats an eye because it's part of the plan. It's like, yeah, even in war we have a plan. Our plan is to sacrifice some of our men to win the game. But as soon as he threatens someone of importance, throws a wrench in the plan, and everyone loses their minds. Yeah. And he hates that. He doesn't think that that's fair.
Well, and at this moment too, Josh, going along with your well thought out plan and idea, he talks about the schemers, the people who are making the plans, but also the chaos within, right? And he's a schemer, and he's trying to give off the illusion that he's not making these plans. He's not trying to set things in motion so that he gets his outcome, which is chaos and the death of the Batman, or various things. He's really just trying to bring on this illusion that he hasn't thought this out completely, because he's like, I'm like a dog chasing cars, wouldn't know what to do. But really, he knows what he's doing, and he's not shying back about it.
Yeah. I wrote in my notes, he's not a schemer, but he has a plan. His plan is intricate to instill chaos. So even though he plans very deeply, he has no end result, just chaos. So even though he plans so hard, he's not planning to get to a certain conclusion. His conclusion is chaos.
He just does and does.
So it's like a back and forth, is that says he wants chaos, but he has a really good plan, but that plan is just so that there's chaos. So it goes back and forth.
Which kind of brings me, I guess, in a way to my other favorite scene of the movie, because every scene is my favorite scene of the movie. But I want to talk about the interrogation scene.
My favorite scene of the movie.
Go for it.
We're trying to get him on here in a little bit. My old high school teacher who taught me English and film lit, we did these different reports and for our film lit class about cinematography and different things. And he said, you can pick scenes from different movies, or you can just pick one scene from one movie and do it for all the different reports for production design and these other things. I did this scene for every single one of those reports. because I love it so much. It starts out so dark, and with them just being in there talking to each other with Commissioner Gordon and the Joker, and you don't know the Batman's in there yet, and they're talking to each other, and it just hides it so well, and it lets you, it's sort of like a duller, I don't want to say a dull, like, bad point of the movie, but it just feels more low-key, low-paced, and they're talking to each other, when really, as we learn throughout this scene, it's about to vamp up really hard. Stuff is going down. I mean, we know that both Harvey Dent and Rachel are missing, but they're talking to each other really chill until Commissioner Gordon leaves and you see Batman come in. And I have a lot more, thoughts about the end of it, but what do you guys think, like, initial thoughts on the interrogation scene, Casey?
You can't just slam somebody's head on the table. It distorts them, and it doesn't
makes them all fuzzy.
Yeah, it makes them all fuzzy. I love this scene for so many reasons. But yeah, mainly because this is where you really see that Batman has enough of a hold on the confidence of the people that they're willing to let him break the rules, even though he's a vigilante and technically they should be hunting him down in ways. And they're, the investigation for the Batman is ongoing, which is left between Elvis, Sasquatch, and something else, right? A piece of pizza or something. But really, it shows the uniqueness that in times of desperation, and this is something also Harvey Dent talks about too, people will elect a leader and, a beacon of hope to do that. And in ways the police force has agreed to Batman, even though they're not completely with him, although they've also elected Harvey Dent as this, and that's why they have to find Harvey. Commissioner Gordon, I have to find Harvey Dent. And so it's, to me, like, this is a very pivotal moment. Yes, slow, but important.
It accelerates really quickly because it starts slow, but it builds the intensity, and especially when Batman shows up and he starts throwing him around physically, it builds the intensity. One of the slower parts, but that takes you aback, is when they're talking really slowly and they're like, "Where's Harvey Dent?" And he's like, "Well, what time is it?" He's like, "Why does that matter?" Like, "Well, he could be in one spot or many depending on the time." So even though it's super chill, you're like, "Whoa, wait a second, like, what's going on?"
Everything you guys said is just spot on this. The scene is so perfectly done. I guess I just want to add on top of all that is this is the moment that we see we talked about the reflection between Harvey Dent and Batman as the Dark Knight and the Light Knight or whatever. This is where we see the opposition between the Joker and Batman, where the Joker just wants to keep on doing whatever he can. He's going to keep pushing. He's going to keep killing. He's going to do anything he wants. And the Batman's going to fight him no matter what. He's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. But he will never break that one rule, which is the one rule that Joker wants him to break, to kill. They're the opposites in everything they do, and they always crash. They always hit together. And Joker believes that if he can push Batman just over that edge to kill, then it's proof of his point that everyone has their breaking point, and he's loves that he found this new guy that's not the, what does he say? I don't want to rip off the mobs anymore. I can't go back to that. Like I've got you. You're perfect. I don't want to kill you. I want to keep doing this. We're gonna keep going forever. It's an immovable rock versus
an impenetrable force.
Impenetrable force.
End, right?
Yeah.
All it needs is a little push.
So I love the interrogation scene when it moves forward because the Joker has so many not quotable but interesting lines in it. Like, he says the one, but then he starts to try and make Batman question the people he works with. He tries to make him question the police by sort of making the audience not necessarily empathize with him, but just stop and force the audience to look at his situation when he says, "I'm not a monster, I'm just ahead of the curve."
Yeah.
And so you think, like, wait, why is he doing these things? It's because he thinks he's found a better solution for humanity and for society, is what it's looking at in his mind. And then you have the part where he says it's the one rule you'll have to break. And then
I also like how he points out to Batman that they're not that much different. Again, back to they're kind of the two heads to the same coin, right? Mm-hmm. Where he believes, like, everyone calls me a freak. What do you think that they're calling Batman? He's a guy who runs around at night dressed as a bat, fighting bad guys, punching bad guys. He's like, you're just like me, We're the same here. And as soon as they don't need you anymore, as soon as you finish what you're doing, they're gonna turn on you, just like they're going after me.
Exactly. And so then it keeps on going, and it ramps up until he says, well, you're going to have to listen to me if you want to save one of them. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? Because I know that they didn't know where Dent was, but I'm pretty sure that we didn't know that Rachel was missing yet at this point, if I'm not mistaken. Because
No, I think this is where you find it out, yeah.
yeah, because he says that if you want to save one of them, because this is the point where Batman turns completely hostile. He puts the thing in front of the door, and he starts just completely wailing on the Joker. But that's why it's so amazing, and the Joker says it perfectly in the speech that he gives right now, is no matter how hard he beats him, he says, you have nothing on me. He says, this is where I can beat you. You can destroy me physically. And he even mentions it later on in the movie.
Yeah.
He's like, you think I'd put the fate of Gotham's soul on a fist fight between me and you? You're crazy.
He knows.
And so, but he knows at this moment, mentally, in his planning for chaos, you have nothing on me. I have all the cards, all of the control right now, and you have to do what I say. And he tries to give him to make the choice, right? Because he knows that Batman will get there faster than the police. Not to move past it yet, but that's where
No, we can go.
the twist
Yeah.
is, right? That he gives them the wrong addresses. And so even though he made that choice, he lied to him, and so it made him lose the thing that he loved most, right? Gosh.
Yeah, so Rachel ends up getting blown up.
Rip.
Harvey Dent gets half his face set on fire. Looks freaking awesome.
So cool.
Side note, this is one of the little bit of CGI that they used instead of practical effects is on Harvey Dent's face. And the reason was that Christopher Nolan, with prosthetics, thought that Harvey Dent's face looked bigger and he wanted it to look smaller. And so they used the CGI to just like, you know, get the look of just the skull there.
Yeah, they have. I have the like extra everything from the Dark Knight trilogy, and when I was watching one of the bonus features, it's just that CGI they have when he's doing it acting. They just have like a bald cap on half of his head, and then he just has little dots on his face, right? So he's just acting like normal, but then they do the CGI there because it would look bigger instead of, you know, sunken in like it should.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just his skull and his bones. So
I'm probably going to jump over a bunch of stuff. Is there anything else you guys want to, any other scenes you want to jump into before we kind of head to the end?
Go.
I mean,
So-
it has to move. It's gotta
Yeah, Joker ends up winning in the end of this movie, which is kind of crazy. Like, I couldn't think of another movie where the villain wins with the exception of Infinity War. But
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. What?
Brightburn.
Which one?
Brightburn.
Brightburn. Okay.
That movie was so bad, Vince, you've already forgotten it. What?
That's good.
But we find out there that, like, I guess Joker's end game is the corruption of the city. And so he ends up putting all the people on the ferry. He ends up... You disagree with me?
He sort of wins because he wins by turning Harvey Dent, right? You talked about before how he's trying to put so many plans in motion because even though he planned so well, it's still chaos. And so he had this plan where he tried to make Batman break his rule, right?
Right.
And so that would have shown that Batman can be turned. And he has this plan to try and turn Harvey Dent. And that one eventually does work. So
And in my opinion, that's the more effective win for him, because Harvey Dent, if he is shown as this evil, corrupt person, everything that he did in the light, everything he did that was according to the law, gets questioned, gets turned around, and everybody they put in jail throughout the movie gets let go. Everything they did becomes undone.
And I agree, because that was sort of part of a bigger plan, right? Because, you know, if Batman turned and did something like that, then it would have been pretty good. But even then, Joker had a larger plan, right? Because he knew he'd be captured, and then he was going to try to escape and everything that goes down later on the ferries and everything. So I think he does win a bigger victory, but he doesn't do everything that he hoped he would because he thought that, you know, the people would blow each other up on the boat. Because that's what Batman says in the end, right? Not to go all the way there, but when he says, you know, were you just trying to prove that everyone is as ugly as you deep down inside? He's like, the people just proved you wrong. So even though he does turn Dent, there's a lot more plans, like you said, from all his many plans that didn't go according to him. So he wins, but he loses some.
Well, I think in this regards as well, in the aspects here, the Joker corrupting Harvey Dent was a true, like, it's a true reflection of how we view often, like, real culture and real society, right? And I always hate feeling like I'm getting into politics here, but put the person who everyone is looking towards as an example or a light to, guide us as like a vessel, right, to guide us, and the media twists them in a wrong way, or they're put in a wrong place. And what happens everywhere else, though? It's chaos. News media eats that up. They all tell different variations of the story. So at this point, once we figure out that kind of Harvey has gone kind of off the rails and he's now, Two-Faced, and he's going around flipping his burnt and shiny coin, it needed to be so. But what really needed to be was that Commissioner Gordon had to have him left in a good light as to not destroy the city any further, because chaos also runs off of what we are fed and what we read, what we hear on the news and stuff like that. And so keeping Batman as the vigilante and as the problem helped them keep in light that there was hope that an ordinary citizen could pick up the mantle and cause change. That's how I saw it. And
No, that's 100% what it was.
Well, because that's almost the entire premise for what sets up the third film, right? The Dark Knight Rises was about how important it was, and they had Harvey Dent Day and everything so that they could show they couldn't let the Joker win to the citizens. They had to show the city that even when the Joker tried his hardest, he couldn't turn Harvey Dent. They had Batman, who went all bad, but he was already a vigilante, so it wasn't as bad as, like we mentioned, it was a bigger win for the Joker, but they didn't let the people see it. The coin getting burned is one of my favorite, symbolic things of the movie, because just by Batman putting that there and him looking at it, he both knows the fate of himself because he knows what happened there. He knows that he survived and Rachel died. He knows so many things just from looking at that, and it's beautifully shot because even though he's screaming and yelling, it's a silent moment besides some slight music and soundtrack in the background, right? So that's one of my favorite things.
It was kind of the last thing that Harvey Dent needed to break him to
Push him over the edge.
Yeah, he woke up and he saw the coin. Yeah, like exactly like you said. Like he woke up, he saw the coin, he saw the two halves, and he's just like, "There's no justice in the world. The only just thing is the flip of a coin."
Chance.
It's just chance, and that sends him on his murder spree, going out and getting revenge on everyone that had wronged him, because he believes that he's the only one that lost anything through this whole movie.
Something I want to talk about there when they're in the hospital is that this is part of where we see the Joker's chaos, but also his plan. The entire scene where he talks to Harvey Dent that sort of pushes him over the edge a little bit more is he tries to convince him, hey, chaos, it's fair, right? And so he does the whole thing where he lets him put the gun to his head, right? And he says, I'll flip the coin, you live, you die. And the Joker's like, I like it, because he's just doing chaos. But if you look really closely, the Joker has his hand on the gun and his finger is blocking the
hammer.
The hammer, yeah. So you guys are good. I don't know much about guns. So that even if he did pull it, he wouldn't have actually died, right? So even though he's like, do I look like a guy with a plan? Even though all he wants is chaos, the Joker is a man with a plan.
Yeah.
As much as he tries not to be.
Yeah.
Well, he just wants to put off this vibe that, like you said earlier, and I keep feeling like I'm beating a dead horse here, but chaos is the king. But really, it really shows that schemers win in this film.
Moving forward really quickly, also another one of my favorite Heath Ledger moments is his ability to improvise throughout the movie. They bought an old abandoned candy factory, if I remember right, and they blew it up for the scene where they blow up Gotham General, right? And when Heath Ledger is walking out in the nurse's suit, all cute, when the building's blowing up behind him, right, there was really malfunctioning equipment. And so the explosion was not as big as it was supposed to be. So the whole part where he turns around and he's like, what the heck is this? Like, what's going on? It's just all improvised.
Yeah.
Because stuff was going wrong. But then they had a fail-safe that was like, where that explosion happens, like, to sort of set everything off more. And so he was just sort of, acting through it. And so it was really good, really well improvised. So cool.
Well, talking about Heath Ledger's improvising, right, a lot of actually his body movements and kind of when he was like licking his mouth and stuff, that is all improvised. None of that is planned, and he picked up some of those tics himself, and people didn't know what to do because, like you said, in many of the scenes, people were genuinely afraid of him because of he was unpredictable. And there have been other people who played the Joker since. Shout out to Jared Leto. You just tried to copy Heath Ledger, and you were weird and creepy the whole time, but not the creepy we needed. So, yeah, stuff like that is really interesting because he was so natural at being this villain. And
Notice how everything that we talk brings us back to the Joker.
yep,
Like, he is just the best part of this movie, this entire thing.
he's the hero he deserved.
Oh man, because we can talk about Christian Bale. He did his role. You know, he was a fine Batman. He did. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, there's an interview where even Christian Bale admits that the first scene that they shot was the interrogation scene, and he sat down, and Heath Ledger's over here telling him to hit him in real life because he wants it to look real, and Christian Bale says he was sitting there thinking, I'm prepared, but what he's doing is so much more interesting than anything I can bring to the table. Like, there's nothing that he could have done to top this performance.
It's true, and because they all do their parts, and we'll have our different standout actors and stuff, but it's obvious, and it's just, for me, I'd have to think about it a lot more, but I think that Heath Ledger playing the Joker could be one of the most iconic roles ever played by anyone in all of movie history ever. And something so amazing that just, you can always have a Joker in your movie, but for me personally, it will never be Heath Ledger as the Joker.
I'm kind of curious because I agree with you. Heath Ledger will forever be the Christian Bale Joker, and his Dark Knight appearance as a Joker is amazing. And I don't ever want people to think that I didn't think this guy is a good Joker. But there is a Joker origin film coming out, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I know it's getting off the rails a little bit, but
No,
Joaquin
no.
Phoenix, I'm excited for him.
I'm very excited as well. It looks incredible, and Joaquin Phoenix, if anybody, can do a good job with it. He's an amazing actor, and I love him.
Is that how you say it, Joaquin?
Joaquin. Well,
Oh.
because it's Spanish, right?
Oh, sorry.
Well,
I don't
it
know what
could be
really is.
Joaquin, right? Phoenix.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joaquin, if you're out there. If we're butchering it, my apologies.
We're not very good with names here.
I loved you and her. Shout out. You know. But anyway, so I'm so sad, obviously, with everything that happened with Heath Ledger, because they set it up really well that even though Bane would still be the main villain, that Joker could still have a role in The Dark Knight Rises. And if Heath Ledger hadn't passed away, he probably would have been in there. They would have had to tone it down so much to make sure that the Joker didn't steal the show again. But he would have been in there, and it would have been so interesting to see the role that they would play, both him and Bane, because they're such different characters, and while they believe in a lot of the same things, it's so different, right? And so, I mean, that's something that I just would have loved to see, just thinking about the trilogy and how it ends out, how they would have written that, and what could have happened. Just, it's what I sit up late at night thinking about.
So just to kind of wrap up my final thoughts and wrap up the movie in general. So one of the things I was really impressed with is there isn't really a fight scene in this entire movie. Like, Batman throws punches, but the fights aren't really that impressive, and they're really short. Like, the coolest fight scene that in my opinion, was in the nightclub when he's going after Maroni. But usually when you get these superhero movies, they build up to this big fight scene in the end where they're punching and blowing up buildings, and then it ends with them defeating the villain, you know? This movie's completely different. And to kind of wrap up my thoughts, this is what I think why this movie stands out so much, is because it's a really exciting scene at the end where Batman jumps down and he's running through the building and he's saving the civilians who are dressed as the bad guys, using the sonar beacon that we didn't really cover. I can just kind of glass over that. They created a sonar beacon that Batman is using to track down the Joker.
Using everyone's cell phones.
Yep. And it's really cool that it's not him running around punching people. It's him it's a really exciting action scene, but it's him saving people. And it's him stopping the police from doing something they're going to regret. And it kind of sets up the believability in the news media and the police force that Batman did turn on people because he's actually fighting cops. And this movie, my last thought, this movie stands out so much because the performances are amazing, the story's amazing, it's filmed incredibly, and it's a large-scale city threat that feels so personal between really these three guys, right? The Joker, Harvey Dent, and Bruce Wayne Batman. It really comes down to those three. But the threat is throughout the entire city. People are getting killed. Joker tells people not to go across the bridge because he'll blow them up if they go across. And so it's like some of these movies, they have a hole in the sky and they're threatening to blow up the city, and they put a big, like Suicide Squad, they throw a big hole in the sky and it's a big world-threatening event. This is a city world-threatening event. Maybe not world-threatening. It's a city-threatening event, but it feels so small and so personal. And that's what I love about it, is they did not sacrifice story for spectacle at all. And it still works out so well.
Ditto. Really, and looking at this movie, for me, I cannot imagine a better film where Batman and Joker go at it, to be honest with you. And yeah, that scene at the end, I think, is one of my... I love that because really Batman is showing us that we're not always right. And our impressions, like, Commissioner Gordon at that point is like, we have to take care of this. Like, we have to act now. And Batman says, no, you have to take a closer look. You really have to get into it. And because he has, this sonar radar, he's able to get that perspective to help the police change their mind. I love that. Like, it really showed that we have to take calculated actions, which also goes in with the rest of the film of the Joker is very calculated. But yeah, in conclusion, I love this film. It's one that Allie and I watch all the time because we enjoy it. It's something that always keeps us thinking. And in the end, right, they have this scene where they immortalize Harvey Dent. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit. But the Batman offers himself as a sacrifice, right? He's the one, he's like, I can run. I can be the one who did this. I killed 5 men, type thing. And he takes it all because of the idea that everyone needs, that there is good. There is someone like them who can do something. And, Harvey Dent talks about early on, we need an ordinary citizen who dresses up, an ordinary citizen who takes the mantle. But really what the people needed was someone who they knew the face of, who they knew personally, who they knew, had the swagger or, the charm to do the job. And so in the end, the Joker won some, lost some, but the chaos is real and the chaos is there. And so, yeah, beautifully shot film.
I agree with both of you. The culmination of this film, like Vince said, does not rely upon the spectacle of a large battle, but rather the Joker trying to prove what he's been trying to prove the entire film, that deep down and everyone is ugly and everyone really relies on chaos, that we live in this society today that has rules, but none of us really want to. The entire film, Joker's been trying to prove that. Joker's been trying to get people to go mad. And in his final monologue, when him and the Batman are fighting at the end on top of the building, overlooking the ferries, the Joker says something about either Batman or someone going to the insane asylum, and he says, they're going to be doubling up with the rate that the people in this city are going mad. And so I love that the culmination of this film, like I said, isn't a battle, but it's... Because, when you think about these large battles that end either a series or a movie, you have, in Stranger Things, it's the battle for Starcourt Mall. In Game of Thrones, it's the battle of Winterfell, and all these different things. The Joker calls it the battle for Gotham's soul. It's not the battle for Gotham. They're not fighting over territory like they do in a lot of other things. It's the battle for Gotham's soul, the battle for what the citizens are going to believe, what people all across the world, because Gotham is a large city that everyone looks at, right? That what is going to happen, what are people going to believe? And that's what the Joker's been trying to do the entire film, and it culminates in this final moment. And then I love that the next part with Harvey Dent, it fits into tying the franchise together, right? Tying the trilogy together with what Batman's going to be, what he now represents for the city. Because at the beginning, Batman was the idol. Everyone wanted to be him. Everyone wanted to help him. While we get to the very end of the movie, and Batman's the bad guy. And that's the way that it moves forward. That's the way that it all connects. While really letting The Dark Knight be almost a standalone movie, it connects it. And like we talked about, I love this movie so much. It's beautifully shot, and they just put it together perfectly. So much to think about. Every time I watch it, I have to... Sorry. I got to catch my breath because I just keep trying to talk, and it just all keeps building up together. But it's wonderfully shot. They tie it all together, while The Dark Knight itself is a standalone film, I feel. it also in the very end connects it to the franchise and Batman's personal character arc. Just, you know, I can't say anything else than I loved it and everything else that I said during the podcast.
So we know we missed a lot in this movie. Maybe we'll have to do a bonus episode on Easter eggs and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But for now, it's already been an hour and a half-ish. So
thanks so much for listening. I mean, if you stuck with us for this long, we really hope that you enjoy this film as much as we have. Please let us know what your thoughts are about if we missed something specific that you think that we're just crazy to have missed or not have mentioned. Please let us know in the comments or message us personally, and we'd love to talk about it with you because obviously we've been talking about this for an hour and a half and we know there's so much that we've missed. Message us because
there's
we'd love to talk about more.
Well, and the reality of it is, yeah, we miss things, but we now need you to help us fill in the gaps of what we've missed. So let us know. Like, really just, like, lay a comment, send a message. We love interacting with you. And it helps us get better, like, to know what people are looking forward to hear. And then also it helps us get to know y'all a little bit better. Like Vin said, it's fun to interact and fun to see. And we love that. But this film is such a masterpiece and such a work of art that really we could not have captured it all in an hour and a half because it's 2.5 hour film. But there's so much within it that it could make it into a 10-hour podcast episode. So I agree. I think we're going to have to come back and do a bonus episode on this. Before we close out, anything else we want to cover in a short moment?
no, follow us on Instagram at the Pause Rewind Play Podcast.
And Twitter. People are busy on Twitter, right?
True. Check us out. It's at Pause Rewind PLA because Twitter has a character limit, which is lame, but whatever.
That's why you should come over to Instagram and hang out with me instead.
It's true. Vince puts a lot more pictures and things like that. I just usually retweet IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and things like that and ask what you guys are thinking. But they're both really fun. Please, like I said, let us know about The Dark Knight. Also let us know. We're always happy to take movie suggestions of what you guys want to hear because we'll definitely do things that we want and new things that are coming out in theaters so you can know how it is or you can have the fresh movies on your mind. But if you guys have a movie that you really want to hear, please message us and I promise we will take it into consideration because we want to do what you guys want to listen to.
And we have a real hard time choosing which movie we're going to do next.
We spent like 15 minutes deciding on our next movie.
But I think we're pretty excited for it because I've never watched it all the way through. Casey's never seen it.
Never.
And this is one of my favorite movies. I'm a huge Bruce Willis fan. Well, like Casey's really into John Hamm over there. I'm Bruce Willis is my man.
Bruce
So
Willis, yes.
this is gonna be good. We're gonna watch Looper next week.
He's the John Hamm of the 90s. He really is. Like I remember like Bruce Willis days for days. Bruce Willis for days, guys. Sorry, but yeah.
Because Bruce Willis, he's so versatile, you know, because you got Die Hard and Looper and all these things. But like, I think as weird as it sounds, my favorite Bruce Willis movie is The Kid. If any of you guys have seen The Kid, I just love that movie. Sorry,
But Looper.
So yeah, watch Looper before next week. You will love it.
It's got Bruce Willis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You know, if you're into the younger, attractive guys, you know, check it out, and we will be all about that next week. Like we said, be sure to follow us, leave a comment, let us know what you're thinking about this and everything else, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. We'll catch you next week.